path from $0 to $100,000 a month in an AI agency is predictable, but only if you know the 3 phases. The truth is, most founders get stuck trying to brute force growth instead of fixing what actually snaps inside the business at each level. And that's the real challenge. Scaling an AI automation agency doesn't happen in a straight line. It happens in stages where each time a different part of your business gives way. So in this video, I'm going to give you the full roadmap, what breaks at 10K, 30K and 100K per month, why it happens and how to fix it. You'll walk away knowing the exact KPIs to track, the bottlenecks to remove, and when you've truly graduated each stage. And later, I'll show you the hidden founder pattern that decides whether you scale past 100K or stall out. And I know this roadmap works because I scaled my own AI automation agency past $100,000 a month in under a year. And inside my community, I've watched hundreds of other founders hit the exact same breaking points and solve them with these systems. So let's start with the first phase of the roadmap, the 10K per month stage. At this point, your agency is still just you. You're doing everything: delivery, sales, operations, even admin. And as you add more clients, the only way to grow is by working longer and longer hours. That's why most agencies stall here, because you, the founder, become the bottleneck. This isn't just about being overworked, it's structural. At this stage, your offer usually isn't sharp enough, the product market fit is fuzzy, or the offer looks like a commodity. That means you need elite sales skills just to get clients to say yes. On top of that, pricing is too low. You're charging $1,000 or $2,000 a month, which forces you to take on way more clients than you can actually handle. And because your pipeline is built on referrals or random outreach bursts, you never know where the exact next lead is coming from. Every delivery, every client call, every proposal runs through you. The more revenue you add, the more hours you're forced to work. I remember hitting this wall myself. I was working almost double the hours I used to in my old job, but ending the month with the same amount of money in my bank account. And here's the trap most founders fall into. They think the answer is more hustle, more late nights, more clients, more manual outreach. But at the 10K level, working harder doesn't get you unstuck. It just locks you in place because the structure of your business is broken. So how do you actually fix this stage? Well, the first step is your offer. Most beginners sell something way too broad, like I'll automate your business with AI. That sounds nice, but it doesn't create demand. You win by solving one sharp, painful problem. For example, instead of saying AI automation, say we built a workflow that books 8 to 12 qualified calls a month for B2B SaaS companies without hiring any extra SDRs. That's clear, that's measurable, and that's tied to revenue. And here's the key: always show the mechanism. Don't just promise calls, explain the system. For me, it was Apollo for data, Instantly for sending, N8N for automation and enrichment, and Airtable for tracking. When you show the moving parts, the client can actually see the system in action. It makes the offer tangible, not just theoretical. And when you combine that with a simple risk reducer like a pilot project or milestone billing, the close becomes far easier. You don't need to rely on charisma or hard selling. Second is pricing. If you're charging $1,000 or $2,000 a month, you'll stay trapped. Because at that price, you need too many clients just to survive, and every one of them runs through you. Instead, push your average client value above $5,000 in lifetime value. The way I did it was simple: a 2K setup fee plus a 2K monthly retainer. That means even if a client only stayed 2 or 3 months, they were still worth more than 5K to me. And if they stayed longer, the LTV shot up even higher. That shift gave me breathing room, and it made every new client actually worth the effort. Third is lead flow. At 10K, your pipeline is fragile. It depends on referrals, random DMs, or one-off outreach bursts, which means some weeks you have leads and other weeks you have nothing. Without a repeatable system, your calendar is always at risk of going empty. The fix is to pick one outbound channel and one inbound channel and make them repeatable. For me, the combination was cold email and YouTube. I chose cold email because it's scalable, predictable, and easy to automate with N8N. Once the system was set up, I could pull leads, enrich them, push them into Instantly, and keep the whole pipeline moving without any manual effort. And I chose YouTube because it was the perfect way to showcase my automations in action. Every video became both proof of what I could build and a magnet for inbound demand. Together, those two channels gave me a steady baseline of calls instead of starting from zero every week. And if building a repeatable pipeline like this feels overwhelming, that's exactly why I built Scaling System Society. Inside, you can literally copy the outbound automations I use to generate thousands of leads for myself and my clients without wasting months piecing it all together. It's the full A to Z system for setting up domains and inboxes, to writing AI-powered cold emails, to automating the pipeline so calls show up on your calendar every week. If you're serious about landing your first client or building a predictable system, the link is below. Now, once you've got leads coming in consistently, the next challenge is converting them into paying clients, and that's where your closing process comes in. You don't have to overcomplicate it. You really just need a simple map for how conversations turn into clients. At the start, you can absolutely do this in one call, uncover the pain, explain your process, and pitch the plan all at once. That works fine when your pricing is lower and clients are moving fast, but as you grow, I recommend switching to a 2-call process. First, a discovery call where you dig into the pain, how they're handling it now, and what success would look like for them. Then a second call where you present the plan, walk them through the mechanism, and show them the investment. Splitting it up gives you more control and usually increases close rates because the client feels heard before you start pitching. And one rule stays the same whether it's 1 call or 2 calls. Always collect payment before kicking off your run. I learned this the hard way, that starting work before money cleared led the clients to vanishing or dragging their feet. The moment I made upfront payment a rule, that problem disappeared. And finally, delegation. Even if you think you're too small, you should start here. At one point, I was spending 2 hours a day just on inbox and calendar management. I hired a VA for a couple $100 to handle scheduling, basic research, and follow-ups. It gave me back 10 hours a week to focus on closing and delivery. Now here's a simple self-diagnostic you can use. Ask, if revenue doubled tomorrow, would my hours have to double too? If yes, you're stuck in the task bottleneck. Ask, if I stop chasing leads for 2 weeks, would my pipeline go dry? If yes, you don't have a repeatable channel yet. And ask, if I lost my top 1 or 2 clients, would my pricing and margins collapse? If that's true, you're underpriced and spread too thin. So how do you know if you've really fixed this stage and are ready to move on? Well, here are the benchmarks to measure yourself against. You should be booking 8 to 12 qualified calls a month. Your win rate should be at least 20-30% on cold leads and 40-60% on warm ones. New clients should see value inside 2 weeks, and your gross margin should be above 60%. And graduation has its own test too. One channel should reliably deliver those calls for 2 or 3 months in a row. You should be involved in less than 70% of fulfillment with SOPs running delivery instead of you. And each client should be worth at least 5K in lifetime value. If you can check those boxes, you've outgrown the 10K a month stage and you're ready to take on the next level where systems start to track or crack and the real pressure shifts. The next level is around 30K a month. At this point, you're no longer drowning in tasks. You've probably brought in some freelancers, maybe even built a small team. On paper, it looks like you freed yourself up, but in reality, you're still the bottleneck, just in a new way. Instead of doing every task, you're making every decision. More revenue means more clients, and more clients expose cracks you could ignore at 10K. Scope creep sneaks in. Quality starts to vary, and freelancers you rely on sometimes disappear or drop the ball. Meanwhile, your calendar fills up with team check-ins and client escalations. For me, this phase felt like playing air traffic control. Planes were coming in from every direction. Clients needed answers, contractors asking for approvals, fires popping up left and right, and every single one of them needed me to give clearance before they could land. My calendar was jammed, but hardly any of it was sales calls. It wasn't growth work, it was constant triage. And that's the real trap here. You feel like you've escaped the grind because you're not stuck in tasks anymore, but all you've done is swap doing for deciding. The harder you push, the more everything escalates to you. At 5 clients, you can still run on gut and feel. At 15, intuition stops working. Without guardrails, the volume alone puts you right back at capacity. The way through the stage isn't more effort from you. It's shifting the weight off your shoulders so the business can run without your constant sign-off. The first breakthrough is giving real ownership. People need clear outcomes, budgets, and boundaries, and then you have to get out of their way. I remember the turning point. Instead of me reviewing every client deliverable, I set quality standards and gave my operator the authority to decide. For the first time, projects moved forward without my fingerprints on every detail. The next shift is locking down scope. At this level, clients will test the limits, one more feature, one more quick tweak. If you don't draw the line, projects sprawl and your margins evaporate. I learned this the hard way by saying yes way too often. The fix was packaging everything into 2 or 3 offers with clear inclusions, built-in review points, and a simple change order process. Suddenly, I wasn't the bad guy for saying no, the system handled it for me. Then you need rhythm in delivery. Without it, deadlines slip and you get dragged back into the weeds. My solution was a 20-minute weekly stand-up where we reviewed what was in motion, what was blocked, and what shipped. That little cadence kept everyone on track and stopped me from being the bottleneck for progress. Acquisition also changes here. At 10K, it's about getting something consistent. At 30K, you can't afford to be dabbling in 5 different things. You need one lane you can fully master. For me, that was obviously cold email. I went all in. One clear offer, one repeatable system, and all my attention on dialing in the copy, the targeting, and the automation so the machine ran every week without fail. YouTube was still very much in the mix, but at this stage it wasn't my main engine. It worked more as a credibility layer and a source for inbound leads when people saw my automations in action. But the heartbeat of the agency, the thing that kept the calendar full, was cold email. Once I stopped splitting focus and fully committed to it, the volatility completely disappeared. Another key lesson is stop patching gaps with people. Hiring random freelancers every time something breaks only creates new problems. They leave, quality varies, and you're back in the fire. What actually fixes this stage is systems, documented processes, QA gates, templates, and a knowledge base. Once those were in place, I didn't care if a freelancer left mid-project, the system made them replaceable. And the last unlock here is data. At 10K you can rely on gut feel. At 30K, gut feel will lie to you. I thought this myself until I started tracking just a handful of numbers every week, where leads came from, how many became SQLs, win rates by channel, on-time delivery percentage, and rework percentage. The first time I saw those metrics in black and white, the bottlenecks were obvious and fixing them became very straightforward. You'll know you're stuck at this level when these same patterns keep repeating. Decisions pile up on your desk no matter how many people you hire. Clients start slipping in extra requests into projects and you don't have a clean way to push back, and your lead flow looks like a roller coaster, strong one month, empty the next, because you haven't committed to one channel as the engine. If those sound familiar, you're still trapped in the 30K bottleneck. At this stage, the numbers become your scoreboard. A healthy 30K agency is booking 15 to 25 qualified calls every month. Cold leads should close around 25 to 35%. Warm leads closer to 45 to 60. Delivery needs to be on time 9 times out of 10, with rework kept under 10%. Margins should settle between 55 and 65%, and your forecast for the next 2 months should be within about 15% of reality. If those stats aren't showing up, something's still off in the system, and the real sign you've broken through. The business keeps moving even when you're not making the calls. Decisions are handled by the people closest to the work. One channel carries the bulk of your pipeline without swinging wildly, and scope control stops being a fight, it's just how the business runs. When those conditions are true, you're no longer stuck in that loop, you're ready for the next level. So let's move into the third phase of the roadmap, the 100K per month stage. On the surface, this looks like the promised land. You've got a team, a steady pipeline, and systems holding the business together. But here's the catch. The moment you hit this level, a new bottleneck shows up, because scaling higher isn't about handling more clients or adding more systems. It's about whether the business can grow without you being the spark behind every idea. And this is where I struggled the most. My team could handle delivery, they could run the campaigns, but the growth levers still lived in my head. New offers, new channels, new personalization angles, nothing moved forward unless I was the one pushing it. That's when I realized I wasn't the bottleneck for tasks or even decisions anymore. I had become the bottleneck for innovation. And when you hit this stage, the pressure shows up in different ways. Lead flow starts to plateau if you're still leaning too heavily on a single channel. Campaign quality dips because your lists are getting reused too fast, or reply handling slips under the weight of volume. Your team feels stretched, and if you're not careful, burnout creeps in. On the surface, revenue looks amazing, 6 figures a month in side clients, but behind the scenes I had months where cash flow felt shaky because tool costs, data spent, and contractor invoices hit before retainers landed. On the outside, it looked like momentum. On the inside, it was very fragile. The way through started with cadence. At 30K, I could still run on instinct. At 100K, that stopped working. So we set rhythm into the business. Weekly funnel reviews to track leads, booked, and campaign performance. Delivery reviews to make sure client results held up. And monthly finance check-ins to know exactly where cash stood. And here's the shift. I stopped walking in with all the answers. Instead, the people running list building, copy, or even client accounts had to show their numbers, explain what was working, and outline the next step. That's when the business stopped orbiting around me and started running as a system. Capacity planning was another lesson. Early on, I'd say yes to every client and figure it out later. At 100K, that created chaos. Too many campaigns live at once meant sloppy execution and missed results. The fix was simple but very hard to enforce. We kept how many accounts we'd actively run at once, and nothing new started until bandwidth opened up. That one rule alone protected quality and kept the team from drowning. On the growth side, I had to stop treating acquisition like a single bet and start managing it like a portfolio. At 30K, cold email was the heartbeat and YouTube added credibility. At 100K, I couldn't afford to bet everything on one lane, so I spread risk. Cold email stayed the engine, but LinkedIn and YouTube each had budgets and targets of their own. Underperformance got got fast, that kept the pipeline volume high, quality consistent without letting us collapse if one channel dipped. Pricing and expansion matter too. Retainers became the baseline, predictable, repeatable, and scalable. But we layered in things like consulting or training offers that gave us margin and upsells without overwhelming delivery, and it made sure revenue per client kept climbing even as volume increased. And the biggest unlock at this stage was innovation. For too long, every new idea, so a new offer, a new angle for personalization, even a new workflow came from me. That kept the agency capped. So the breakthrough was building a culture where testing wasn't optional. Each quarter, the team had to ship and measure one experiment, a new targeting handle, a new data source, a new way to personalize. The first time my account manager tested new intent data in outbound and it doubled reply rates, I realized growth no longer depended on me alone. That was the shift that made the business more scalable. So how do you know if you're trapped here? If the moment you stop driving new ideas, growth stalls. If campaigns slip because you're running too many at once. If your pipeline swings because you're still living off a single channel. Or if you still feel like every experiment has to come from you. And here's what a healthy 100K a month agency actually looks like. You're booking 40 to 60 qualified calls a month. Cold should close at 25 to 35%. Warm still at 45 to 60. Gross margin should hold above 55%. Operating margin in the 20-30% range. Churn is low. Cash is collected quickly, and you've got at least 3 months of runway in the bank. Most importantly, the business keeps moving without you. 2 or 3 channels keep your pipeline steady. Client campaigns run on rails, and the team ships new tests quarter after quarter without waiting for your push. That's when you've beaten the 100K bottleneck. You've built an agency that doesn't just grow with you, it grows beyond you. And when you reach that point, you've proven the model works. But stepping back, you can see the bigger picture. Every stage had its own ceiling, and every ceiling came back to you as the founder. So to bring this back full circle, the path from 0 to a 100K a month isn't about brute force. It's about solving the right bottleneck at the right stage. At the 10K phase, the ceiling is tasks. You're the business, and every client adds more hours to your plate. The fix is sharper positioning, sustainable pricing, one repeatable channel, and delegating the basics so growth doesn't crush you. Miss that, and you stay stuck grinding. At the 30K phase, the ceiling shifts to decisions. The team can execute, but every call still escalates to you. The way through is giving ownership, locking down the scope, setting delivery rhythm, and commitment to one dominant acquisition lane. Without that, your calendar fills with firefighting instead of growth. And at the 100K phase, the ceiling becomes innovation. The machine runs, but all new growth levers live in your head. The unlock here is cadence, capacity discipline, multi-channel acquisition, and building a culture where the team runs experiments without waiting for you. Skip this and you stall, even if the numbers look good on paper. And that's the hidden founder pattern I mentioned at the start. At every stage, you are the bottleneck. First for tasks, then for decisions, then for innovation. Solve those in order, and the path from 0 to a 100K a month becomes inevitable because you're running a business designed to scale, not one held together by hustle. Now the truth is, none of these bottlenecks matter if you don't have a predictable flow of new clients, because without that, you'll always be stuck in survival mode. That's exactly why I built Scaling System Society. Inside, you'll get the full A to C system I use to scale my agency past a 100K a month, from automating cold email with AI to handling replies, booking qualified calls, and closing them. Plus, you'll plug into a community where we break down what's working right now with Q&As, templates, and automation you can copy straight into your own business. If you want to skip the years of trial and error and build a client machine that lands you first or next client on Autopilot, the link is in the description below. I'll see you guys inside.